Good afternoon and welcome again to HR and Leadership Coffee Talk. I am Daya Naif. I'm a professional coach, a certified mediator, and have 16 years of experience in construction law, part of that serving as general counsel. Edgar?
Hi everyone, I'm Edgar Jatu and I'm an HR consultant with the FAQs LLC. I'm also a nonprofit professional and problem solver and workers' rights advocate.
So this program today is for new and developed companies with or anticipating employees, managers striving to invoke or maintain an inclusive culture, welcoming and diversity, and employees working for social justice and inclusivity, both personally and professionally. So, inclusivity. We have, of course, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, commonly known as Title VII, where it is illegal to discriminate against a person on basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And recently, the Supreme Court has applied that now to the gay and transgender community. It was included, it's now just been completely defined and inked by the Supreme Court. And during that court case, they had over 200 major corporations file briefs in support of gay and transgender employees. So there are a lot of benefits for inclusivity in the workplace. This is not new. This research has gone back for decades, and we are glad it's making great strides now. So here is a little survey, Glassdoor put this on, and it was republished by Talent Lift, and we're republishing it again. So 67% of job seekers say that a diverse workforce is important when considering job offers. Now, I as a coach have talked to a lot of people who have gone to employers saying that they were a diverse workforce, and then getting inside and realizing that maybe they weren't as great as what the brochures. So this is something that you're not going to be able to smoke and mirrors over to attract talent and then have the talent stay. This is something that is going to have to be part of your culture. Also, it all comes down to the bottom line. So diverse teams make better decisions 87% of the time. So you can see this. This is a very commonly used illustration designed originally by Clover Prof, and it's been copied many times by other people with scholastic studies. So starting with the all-male spectrum, which we had, and probably 2 to 3 generations of the employment force ago, to now our very diverse workforce. So we have 87% better decision making. So we all know that's going to really affect the bottom line and help our businesses flourish and grow. Business review back from 2016 about breaking up workplace homogeneity. So people will become more aware of their potential biases. So you're also becoming more aware of your customer base. So you won't be blind to what they actually want as your company grows and develops. So Edgar, I'm going to turn over some of this creating of culture of inclusivity to you. I do have a slide on what SHRM talks about, and I'm going to go a little bit more into listening to employees, but I'd love for you to make an introduction on inclusivity.
Absolutely. I think more so than ever with all that's happening in society and in our country, having an inclusive workplace is even more important. It's not only more imperative, but as you have so aptly demonstrated, it's just really good for business, particularly in a world that's more connected, and where companies and consumers are craving for people that look like them in certain positions, whether it's in front-facing parts of the organization, in the way you market your products, and some of the pillars you stand behind as an organization. And I would say that to have a robust diversity and inclusion program, it requires will. It's very easy to pay someone to come in and do a training or to help you put, words in black and white. But it's all for nothing if the organization itself is not fully behind and making a commitment in following through and implementing these types of things in the workplace. Now, I think a common thing that people will come up with and say is that, does that mean that we just have to find people of color or people from marginalized communities and put them in certain positions? That could be part of it, but that's not necessarily always the right thing to do. It's really about making sure that you have true equality in the way that you recruit and identify talent. And then once you bring in that talent, how you retain that talent. And I think a common thing that happens, particularly when you bring in people of color or women, and or people from other marginalized groups in workplaces, is that they're not given the tools to succeed, and not given the opportunities that maybe their male counterparts might have to showcase their talents. And that's where the retention problem really breaks down, or rears its head. And so it's really important that in putting together a diversity and inclusion program, that you really pay attention to the retention part, and identifying ways that you can equally across the board ensure that people that you bring in because of their talent are given opportunities to showcase their talents and given opportunities to take on certain positions, so that naturally, as they progress through an organization, they're a natural choice for becoming a next high-level executive or leader in a company. And so and I would also say that I've gotten a lot of questions about where do I find information about how to do these programs, and my response is that there's tons of information. There is no excuse anymore that you can't find information or find people or find resources as to how to do this or how to understand how to do it. It really just comes down to will and a commitment to see it through.
Great. So, like you said, there's a lot of information out there. And I think that, again, coming from my background in leadership and coaching, listening is the most important skill. So listening to people when they speak, you should be having a conversation with people where you are speaking no more than 30%, ideally 20% of the time, so that you can really make a connection and have them be heard. So there was a great resource called Stepping Up, Taking Responsibility for Changing Everything. And again, this is an older book. This is 2012. When they interviewed people in this book, 675 professional workers saying that leaders made big decisions without seeking input. So this is proverbial change kind of rolling downhill. So the people that were actually doing the work were not being consulted about what it was that they were going to actually be implementing in the company. And a lot of times people downhill, so to speak, are the ones that are client facing. So they are the ones who are listening to the customer needs. They're listening to the change of the market. They are consumers themselves of what you are, the services you're providing and the products that you are providing. So again, people want to be heard and they want to feel valued. That's why you don't want to talk as much in a conversation. You would rather listen a lot more. Leaders also just come up with ideas sometimes. Sometimes they do a study or hire a consultant that doesn't do a good deep dive like Edgar would to get into what the workforce is really working on, something maybe they, I don't know, read or learned and wanted to implement from top down. And people also do want to get rewarded and recognized. They want to come up with something and not have it batted down as, no, we've always done it this other way, that's not going to work. Innovative ideas can be fostered, especially in a diverse community. People have different experiences, different ways of doing things, and that should be applauded to bring and see how it will change the culture. Again, listening strategy is more than surveys and committees. Yes, surveys and committees are great, but that should not be the only thing to have a diversity initiative in your company. So looking at the company as a whole, you want to include goals and objectives of the company. There's not a one size fits all. You can't just download Inclusivity implementation plan off of the internet and expect that it's going to work for any type and size of business. So again, you're going to have to really look at the questions that you ask and how you're going to get the feedback. Some people are very happy to take surveys and give written reports. Some people want to remain anonymous. Some people want to do verbal, which means you will actually have an employee or a third-party consultant actually go around and speak to them, have an open, exactly. So some people just do not feel comfortable, and I totally get that. All right.
And Dale, I want to add one other thing. I think it's important that leadership allows themselves to be vulnerable. It's not it can be a very uncomfortable conversation to have to address diversity and inclusion, because part of it can mean that you have to look inwards as to your own implicit biases or beliefs or worldviews, right? And it's really important that in trying to craft a program that makes sense to your organization, that there's some vulnerability and the understanding that it's okay to not know what you don't know, and it's okay to acknowledge that maybe we didn't get it right before, you know, because I think that allows for your employees to buy in if they see that this is not just some way of checking boxes, but there's really true commitment. And also, it kind of plays into your thoughts about active listening and soliciting feedback, you know, to make organizations healthier.
Great. Well, I'd like you to continue. We're going to talk about having difficult conversations, so keep going.
Yeah, sure. And I think that having difficult conversations in the workplace, or in general in life, is a skill. You know, it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people, and it's really important that people understand that there is no shame in not knowing how to have a difficult conversation. Some people might just be better at it because they've had to do that more often than not, either professionally or personally. So if you're someone that you see this word difficult conversation and you tend to cringe or want to hide in the ferns, that's okay, because it is a skill that you need to learn. But you know, if you want your diversity and inclusion programs to work, part of the process is learning how to have and facilitate a difficult conversation. And it could take up many things. You know, it can mean not only in the way that coworkers interact or how they interact with leadership, but it also can mean conversations that are happening in the broader society, which, you know, right now we're in the, you know, right now is an example of that. There are a lot of things happening in society that are going to come up at work. It's inevitable. And that in most workplaces, people will be talking about the protest or discussing the most recent Supreme Court decisions, you know, politics, whatever it might be. And certainly as an organization, you can lay ground rules for what kind of conversations are allowed to happen, and reminding people that there's certain limits to those conversations, you know, in that if you go beyond a certain point, it can trigger some legal ramifications, and that's important for people to remember. But inevitably, people are going to have these conversations, right? And I think it's really important for organizations and people within them to find ways and resources and trainings on how to have these conversations in the workplace.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think some of the worst things you can do is avoid having the conversation. And leaders, generally speaking, again, various studies that managers generally avoid conflict. They like for people to just kind of do their thing. And if something starts to bubble up, it's kind of suppressed. And having a good leader and a good manager to facilitate these conversations will keep the organization healthy. So here is another question that we've been getting. You just started talking also on the protests and the social justice campaigns that have been going on. And of course, the phone has been ringing off the hook of how to support our employees who are actively participating in these campaigns. So if you'd like to answer some of these questions.
Yeah, sure. So the first question is, what can I do if my employee is arrested for protesting? I would say that as I answer this question, the general theme is empathy. You know, and I think that's probably the theme for this year is empathy. It's been a tough year for everyone. You know, everyone is going through something this year, whether it's related to COVID-19, the recent social unrest, mental health issues because of increased isolation and not having as much human contact. Everyone is going through something this year, in one way or the other. And particularly on this topic of, you know, what if my employees are arrested for protesting? I would say empathy really matters in the situation. And of course, as an organization, you might have difficult decisions to make, right? Because I think that for many people, they're going to want to know, okay, well, why were you arrested? You know, did you engage in some behavior that that might reflect poorly on your organization? And that is a valid conversation to have. But I think before you rush to any judgment that someone got arrested, get all the facts first. You know, understand what's at stake. You know, it could just be that it was past curfew, which is not the end of the world. It could just be a misunderstanding. Maybe wrong place at the wrong time. That happens a lot in protests. You know, you're minding your own business and you're lumped up in a roundup through no fault of your own. So it's really important to get all the facts first. Make sure that you know, if to the extent you have any company policies in writing, that none of those are violated. And to the extent they were, you know, exercise appropriate judgment in the way you use those policy and procedures, and also, you know, make a final determination as to did the underlying act that prompted this person to be arrested, you know, does that reflect poorly on the organization? And if so, is it something that we can handle as an organization, or do we have to take some other measures to protect the organization? Again, it's a difficult conversation to have. It's not easy, but you know, but it's still necessary and uncomfortable. But it has to be done.
Great. So what if an employee's loved one is killed or injured during the civil unrest?
So this is a toughie, you know, and I think that I would at least encourage employers and organizations to have some flexibility. So hopefully you do have a you know, PTO policies or leave policies that will allow someone to care for a loved one that was injured. And in most situations, it's mandated by law that you allow for either paid or unpaid time for someone to be at home or to be away from the office to take care of a loved one that has been injured during civil unrest. And certainly in the event that someone lost their life, you want to give that employee some flexibility, whether it's, again, being flexible with the leave policies you currently have, allowing them bereavement leave if it's available, or to just give them the time, and to just check in to make sure they're okay. You know, more importantly, you know, no one wants to see anyone hurt or worse, you know, while they're advocating for their rights. But unfortunately, sometimes that happens. And I think going back to my response to the first question is, don't rush to judgment. You know, and if anything, particularly in the event that someone was injured or you know, or worse, it may not even be something you even want to like, get involved in. Just follow the policies, follow the law, and just be flexible and empathetic to the situation.
Great, thank you. All right, so this is a question that I've been getting also from different property owners and business owners. So what to do if your property is damaged or your store has closed due to protests and riots. So there have been a lot of curfews issued. There have been a lot of street closures. And so people's storefronts and offices have been closed to prepare for the protests. And then on the flip side, there have been some property damage claims. So again, you're going to, or to address this, is you're really going to want to read your policy. And this is just some guidance. This isn't legal advice. Definitely want to consult an attorney in your local jurisdiction. But you're going to want to look at your policy. It's not something you can just go, oh, they're never going to cover it. You really want to look and see. A lot of business interruption insurance and property damage clauses do have any kind of rioting, hazards, fires. It would be included. But you'll want to look at, especially for a 72-hour or a 3-week clause, and that would be basically, it could be that you're self-insured for the first 72 hours, and then you have three weeks, and then it moves into a different phase of loss. And with anything, mitigate your damages. Go in and stop the damage. If the windows are broken, board them up. Absolutely, just do that on your own responsibility and just take a lot of photographs. If you have a contractor, you hire someone to help you, make sure you keep all of your receipts and have estimates and after work done reports as well. And if you have evidence, this is a criminal act. If someone does break into your property or damage your property or set your property on fire, if you have surveillance cameras, turn those over to the police, and your insurance company is going to want to see them also. So make sure that you keep all that in a safe place. So yes, so as employers, we want to support this social justice movement that is happening now. And we also want to keep our insurance policies up to date and keep our businesses running. People do need places to work, and we need businesses, and Edgar and I work for business owners. So we want to keep those businesses healthy and on the path. So what is next? So you can contact myself or Edgar or both. Again, if you have any questions, you can also email questions for our next HR Coffee Talk, whatever is pressing to you in your business. Again, I said that you need to consult an attorney, or you may need to consult an attorney. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction on that for your local jurisdiction. Edgar, do you have any parting thoughts?
I guess the one parting thought I would have is now more than ever, leaders of organizations have to really be more nimble-minded in the way they address problems. Because it's one thing to just dealing with your business alone, but now there are many other factors that are coming into the calculus in the way you make personnel decisions and the way you keep your business healthy. So I think the word of the day is nimble-mindedness.
Nimble-mindedness, awesome. We will put that next to you in quotes. Great. So thank you everyone for coming. We will be having another one again very soon. We kind of produce them on demand. So feel free to bombard us with your questions, and we will be happy to answer them on the next HR and Leadership Coffee Talk.
Take care, everybody.